Hey folks, welcome back. Man, we've had a great show. We've had a monologue with a flying dead cat. We had an interview with an icon of modern cinema in Yo, as I like to call him, Yo. And now you have the very first big show with Chris Meaux, Geek Peak, or as I like to pronounce it, Geek Peak. Geek Peak. I find that very funny to say. What is the Geek Peak? What is that going to be? What is it now? What's happening? What the Geek Peak is, ladies and gentlemen, it is your glimpse inside the world of a self-proclaimed nerd / geek. I prefer either term, really don't care. They mean essentially the same thing. I tend to think a geek is maybe more self-aware that they're a geek. They're not fighting it. Whereas a nerd might be still in denial. I don't know. And why do they talk like that? It's disturbing. But anywho, I have many nerdy qualities and many things that I like that are of the nerd geek persuasion. But one of the big ones for me is action figures. I've always loved action figures as a kid. Back when oil was a lot cheaper and plastic was a lot cheaper, so toys were cheaper. I had tons of them, man. I had most of the Masters of the Universe, He-Man line. I had most of the G.I. Joe. I had like hundreds. Well, I wouldn't say hundreds. That's an exaggeration. It seemed like it as a kid. Now that I'm better at numbers, not really. But I had a lot of G.I. Joes. I even had the 6-foot aircraft carrier, the USS Flag, which took up like my room, basically. It was awesome. I had a lot of Transformers, which I still have those. And I still have my G.I. Joes, not the aircraft carrier. I had a lot of Star Wars. And very few at the time superhero figures, because they really didn't have anything that cool. They had superpowers, which was DC, and then they had something called Secret Wars, which was Marvel. And I had some of those, but I didn't have that many. For whatever reason, I don't honestly know why. It just, I guess, wasn't that big. But I was into comics, and as time went on, I began to buy action figures again. When I was in high school, they had some cool stuff that came out. And then once the bug bit me, as you might have heard, the collecting bug, well, then here we are. So, not in this Geek Peek, but in another Geek Peek, I will show you my collection. I will show you the what my lovely older daughter Ava calls she calls it the super cave, which is awesome. It's our third bedroom, which is kind of our office, but I've taken it over. My wife has very generously allowed that to happen, and I have bookcases filled with comic books, in collected form, and then action figures aplenty. And I will show you that in future installments. Today, though, I want to explain, because often people make fun of the fact that I have action figures. My students in the past, when they've heard, they're like, "You like toys?" I prefer to see them as action figures. But sometimes I've even been picked on, and by girls no less. By girls, they're like, "Oh, you play with dolls." It's like, I don't play with them, and they're not dolls. Dolls have clothing. I have a few that have clothing, actually, but they're still in the package, and they're not coming out of there, and, they're action figures. But let me throw you some terminology. I am what you would call a collector of MOC. Okay, we call them mockers, mock collectors in the biz. Some people call them that. Mock means mint on card. So I have some toys I will not open, action figures and other things I will never open. Now, if I have any I don't open, generally I am also an opener, and so that means that I actually have two. I have duplicates. I have the carded ones. A card is the backing of the figure. We're talking about action figures specifically. There's what's called the bubble, which is the plastic front that allows you to see the figure, and then that's glued or taped onto a card, which is the back. And so I have some still mint on card, and then I have quite a few that are open, and I have duplicates, and I display the duplicates. And you'll see all that when I do that Geek Peek later on. In the next episode, I'll start showing you my collection. Start showing you, because it's a lot. Today I thought, can I address what I think it is that maybe people don't get about action figure collecting? Because I have a friend who will remain nameless, but the comment was made by this individual once. I was saying how I like to open them. I open them and display them, and this person was surprised that I actually open them, and that I am just really somehow an addict or something, that I just buy these toys and then just put them up and don't really do anything. But I was explaining how I appreciate them, and how the things that we action figure collectors appreciate, and collectibles collectors as well, appreciate various things that are really related to the art field. We appreciate things that are elements of sculpture and painting and application of paint and all these different things. And so, so it isn't just I play with these. Do I play with them? No, I actually don't. I might pose them occasionally because, again, that accentuates the aspects I'm about to go through with you. But I don't play with them in general, and I want to, but they ain't cheap, as my wife would tell you. So there are a number of elements that that we have. And the first element, I thought I would use a figure to explain each element that has these qualities, and then I would show you a third. So that's going to be two figures that are going to primarily show two elements. The first element being what we call sculpt, and what we call sculpt and paint applications. Okay, so and I'll explain that when I show you the figure. And then the next figure is going to be posability, and it'll of course also have some sculpting and paint apps, but it won't be the same quality as the first figure because it was made at a different price point and it was made for a different consumer than the first figure I'm going to show you. And then the third figure combines both, amazingly enough, to have both the posability of that second figure, but the sculpt and the paint applications on a par with the first figure. So it's kind of combining those. And that's rare. You don't find many figures like that today because, again, when action figure companies make their figures, there's the adult collector, which is a market unto itself, and it's always been there, but it's become much more widespread and marketable in the last, I don't know, 10 years. And so that would be my demographic. And then you have kids. You know, we make these toys for kids. Some companies hit both markets very wisely in one figure. Others will separate it into two different lines. Like you've got this line. It's, let's say, The Dark Knight Rises, the movie coming out this summer. They've got an adult collector's line called Movie Masters. They've got a better sculpt. They've got better articulation and better paint applications than would the smaller line, which is, I think, called Bat Tech. And those are tinier figures that they have barely any articulation, but they have a lot of little accessories and gimmicks that the kiddies, we're told the kiddies love them. I've never, as a kid, played with the gimmicks. I've never seen a kid play with the gimmicks. Usually, I think those things get left in the package and thrown away, and the kid plays with the figure. So anyway, so there's different demographics, but we'll talk about that. So I'm going to move the camera now. Hold on to your seats if you're in any way nauseous through movement. What do they call that? Oh yeah, motion sickness. Sometimes I can't remember simple words. Then you're going to want to hold on. Here we go. All right, we're here at the again, we're here at Big Show Studios, and like I said, I'm going to start with a figure that is primarily designed to be interesting in the sculpt and paint applications. So this, and I'm going to adjust the camera accordingly for you to be able to see it. This, of course, is Batman. Now, Batman has been in a lot of different movies, and I don't know how well this is gonna turn out. Hold on a second, folks. Talk amongst yourselves. Talk of the current situation in Uganda. If you know what that is, talk to a friend and talk to them and say, hey, how about that situation in Uganda that's going on right now? Because, man, that's quite the situation. What will they do in Uganda? I don't even know. I don't even know if there is a situation in Uganda, but hey, there you go. So just a minute, I'm trying to find something to kind of elevate my iPod. iPod? Really? I don't have one. To elevate the tripod of my camera. And then I'll be with you shortly. Okay, I'm back. And let's see if this works. This is, by the way, this tripod was $1 at Dollar Tree. And it's about, you get what you pay for, right? Anyway, here is Batman. Now, Batman's been in a lot of different movies. He's been in a lot of different programs and cartoons, comic books, movies, video games. This figure here, and I don't know how well my camera will pick up some of these details. Let's move in closer here. Hey, that's too close with the camera. Sorry, Batman. I know you don't like being photographed. You're not unlike me in that regard. I don't like pictures either of me in general. This Batman is a figure from the video game series Arkham Asylum. All right, now there's two Batman video games made in this series. The first is called Batman Arkham Asylum, and the sequel, was called Batman Arkham City. And Arkham City I actually have that game. It's the first Batman game that I've played on a new generation console, and it's one of the most heavily awarded, from what I understand, video games ever made. It's very popular. It's a very good game. Really cool. And this is a figure based on the first one, which I never got to play, Arkham Asylum. And my camera's not going to cooperate with me, I don't think, because I am not... Oh, there we go. Hey. There we go. I don't know what I did, but it works. So here you're going to notice that we have Batman, and I can come in closer. Don't be afraid. Well, I might be a little afraid of you, Bruce. Let's get there. Now, notice that face, okay? And you can see it a lot clearer now that I've kind of adjusted the camera. Look at the detail on the face. Let me turn that here. Don't fall, Batman. Look at the sculpt on there. Look at the eyes. Because like the figure or the model that he's based on, he's got these realistic eyes, which you can't really see. You can kind of see them there looking out at you. Unlike your comic book Batman, which would usually have white eyes, like he has lenses. So look at the sculpt on that and the detail based on what's called the render, which is the 3D model, which is a digital model of the character in the game. And so that is what we're looking at with a figure like this. This figure is made by a company called DC Direct. They recently renamed to DC Collectibles, and they're in-house. They're owned by Warner Brothers and DC Comics, and they make these figures. And the thing about a DC Direct or DC Collectibles figure is that fans of action figures know that they are going to have a sculpt, right? And they're going to have a sculpt, and they're going to have paint apps, which is paint applications, that are going to be much more detailed and of a higher quality than we would find in what we call a mass market toy, which is going to be the next figure we're looking at. So that means they're making less figures than a mass market, because it's not mass market. It's usually considered an adult collectible. These are not cheap. This particular figure, I want to say I got him for about $18. And that was with buying another one of him to open, so $36. I had some Christmas money, so I bought two of these, one to open, one is still mint on card. See, you're learning all these terms now to impress no one that you know who knows these things. Let me move into the light here. Hey there, Bruce. Yes, I refer to my action figures by their fictional first names because I need help. But as you can see, there's that great detail there, and I'm gonna move and just kind of give you an idea of the rest of the sculpt there. You can see his and you really can't see it that well because my lighting setup, which is non-existent really. It's the overhead light, and I have like a lamp. But you can see the belt details there. I think you can probably see those pretty decently. You can see it in the sculpt. There are these rivets. I don't know if you can see that. This is not something that you really have to do when you're making a figure. And they put the detail in there. These rivets are actually sculpted in, so that these white points here, that's not just painted on. Okay, they've been actually sculpted in, and there's really great sculpting that goes on. I'm going to just show you the leg there. You can see the musculature. I mean, it's not smooth. Some figures might have kind of a smooth paint job or sculpt. This is really great detail. Okay, you got the buckles on the back for this shin armor that Batman wears in the game. You've got a really good paint job on the cape. You've got what we call a wash, which kind of is a shading technique, and it's here on the back. You can see the detail on the cape. There's the different colors here too, the blue. I didn't notice this until now, and that's disappointing because some paint messed up there. So that's Batman. He, again, is made by an adult collectibles company, DC Direct and DC Collectibles now. You're looking at a higher price point, but you're getting a higher degree of sculpt quality, and the paint applications are going to be better. And the reason for that is twofold. One, less figures are being made, so there's more time to be devoted to, well, they're using fewer moldings, so the molds are going to be of a higher quality because they're not using the mold as much because it's not mass market numbers. And the paint job is going to be the same reason, that there's less figures to paint, and so they can do a high quality paint job. Now, this is not the best paint job or paint apps you're going to find or sculpting necessarily, but it's among the best. So that's Batman. my favorite superhero character there, so I had to start with him. And then here we have, as I said, the next. Now, I forgot one thing. Batman here has what we call good paint apps, good, well painted, good detail, good shading. I mean, you can't see it, but he's got some really. You might be able to see it. He's got some, even some kind of like a 5 o'clock shadow going on there on the mask. He's pretty decently articulated. You know, there's a swivel here at the wrist or at the elbow. He's got an articulated wrist. He comes with an accessory, a batarang there, a really cool big one. He's got an open hand and a closed hand. He's got some shoulder articulation you can't see here. He's got some knee joints. Again, that's going to be back and forth movement. I don't like to move mine that much because it can loosen the joints and make them weak, and then the figures will flop over, and that just breaks my heart when that happens and makes me angry. So I'm not going to do it. And you can see under there the rest of the sculpting there in the cape and the back. So good sculpt, great sculpt, and great paint apps. Articulation. He's got a ball jointed neck, which you have to almost today, unless you're wanting to upset people or make a bad product. You've got to have what we call a ball joint for the neck. And you're all familiar with ball joints. You use them in things you're not aware you're using them, like this tripod. A lot of things have ball joints. Putting the head of the character on a ball joint gives it so much more personality, because you can get a lot more poses. But look at that there. He's looking off into the distance at someone he's about to jump off of a building and beat the crap out of. Now, let's move on to one of my least favorite characters, and that's the not, in my opinion, so amazing Spider-Man. And I just think Spider-Man's overrated. That's me. I know some people would say, well, Batman's overrated. And that's whatever you think, man. That's great. If you can sleep at night telling your kids Batman is overrated, go for it. No, I'm kidding. Whatever you like is great, and whatever you don't like, whatever. Now, this is Spider-Man. And this is a mass market toy. This toy was made by a company that used to have the license for Marvel toys during the... this is actually from 2002. And this is Spider-Man from the first Spider-Man movie, I think, or maybe the second one, actually. And this was billed as being what we would call a superposable figure. What that means is that the articulation on this guy is going to be off the... It's going to be off the hizzy. It's going to be off the charts. That means that there are cuts. Joints are cut in, usually. And there are cut joints in places here this guy has that Batman figure you just saw doesn't even begin to have. So look, his fingers are individually articulated. He can open and close his fingers, which I guess is cool. Spider-Man doesn't really hold anything, but he can flick you off, which I'm not going to do that. But I mean, he can give you the middle finger. He has these joints here. Look at that. You got a range of. You've actually got some ball jointed shoulder joints. Look up here. We've got what we call ball jointed hips, so he can get into a lot of amazing poses. He's got a hinged torso here, so he can lean back like this. He can lean forward. His head goes up really far. If Spider-Man could fly, then that would be great. Because now, look, he's the Macy's Day Spider-Man float. Watch out! I need assistance again, as I said. But there, he can do this. And what's great about this is I had him in my room, posed in this way with his legs up like this. See, because look at those double knees. And then he's even got a toe joint, so his foot can even go up like that, which is pretty cool. And then he does this, and I had him in this crouching position on my shelf with the other Marvel figures, and that's what Spider-Man does. He gets in these weird bug-like kind of contortionist poses, because that's Spider-Man. That's what he does, right? Batman, not so much. Spider-Man, yes. So this figure has great articulation. We've explained that. It's got loads of articulation. I think at the time this was considered high, and it still is a pretty good amount for today. I don't know that you'd need more articulation than this. I want to say Spidey here had about 21, or no. He's got at least 30 points of articulation, if memory serves. That's a lot. 30 points of artic is really a lot for a figure. Some would say, and you're going to notice he's kind of floppy. You know, he's having a seizure or something's happening to him. He's been bitten by some other animal, maybe. I'm going to stop talking this much. But I personally I like articulation. I think it's great for a character like Spider-Man. When you get to a character like that, really any character that's so articulated, they begin to lose what we call joint cohesion. That's what I call it. I don't know if that's a term people use. When this starts to happen, it's not good. Now, this is a great toy for a kid because a kid can get him in any kind of weird poses he wants to get him into. I mean, a kid's going to have a lot of fun. What this figure also has, and again, I don't know how well, oh yeah, you can see it here. Notice the detailing, those little tiny bumps there on his legs. That's great sculpting on a figure at this price point, which this was 02, 10 years ago. I want to say I paid around $7 or $8 for this. Today, this is about a $15 figure. With this kind of articulation and size, price point would be around there. Now, he's got great artic, he's got great, he's got great sculpting here, and he's got now, paint not that great, but a pretty good paint job, again, for this price point, and the fact that you've got this much articulation. So paint, we would say, weak, or better than average. Sculpt, the fact that they got these details in here, that Spider-Man costume that Tobey Maguire wore, very detailed. You can see it here. It had a texture to it, not unlike a basketball. And you can see that here. They've also got the raised webs, which also was on the costume. The raised spider. If this was Feel-O-Vision, you could feel this here. I have like 5 of these, and because when the movie came out, I bought a number that are in boxes, and then I have a number of these for different reasons, but I have at least 2 of these open and posed. So this is a figure that has great articulation. More articulation than Batman. Not always a great thing, a lot of articulation, but it can be something that the adult buyer of action figures is going to say, oh yeah, I want that. And they're Japanese figures. This was made in America by Toy Biz before Hasbro bought out the Marvel license. Hasbro, of course, makes G.I. Joe, Transformers, My Little Pony, all that stuff. But this was great articulation for an American figure. There are Japanese figures that have even more articulation. Their figures, to import them, this figure, if it were Japanese, more articulation, better paint, and you were importing it, you could be looking at $50 for this guy. So, those are the serious collectors. I do not have anything of that price point for a 6-inch figure. Now, we move on to my friend Hellboy. Now, Hellboy is not a character many viewers may know unless you've seen it. I'm going to slightly undress Hellboy here. Watch out! And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to show off his sculpt here. First of all, look at that face. That is a great likeness of the actor who played Hellboy. Ron Perlman, who's a great character actor. He's been in a lot of movies. You don't even know who he is, but I name the movie and you'll be like, oh yeah, he was in that. He was in Beauty and the Beast, the old TV series back in the 80s. For those of us that are old enough to remember that. Look at the detail there. Look at that grimace. Look at the hair sculpt. Look at the detail on his horns. Those round things there are his horns because he's the son of Satan, a son of Satan. Satan got around apparently. But he's got a great sculpt. I mean, just a fierce. The teeth are yellow. They're all individually cut in. The teeth. They're not just a solid surface painted white or yellow in this case, kind of yellowish. Great great paint and great sculpt. Okay, if we look at his shirt underneath, this figure did not have this coat. I actually put this on from another figure because it should have had a coat, but they didn't make one. You can see the detail on the zipper there. I think you can maybe get the zipper detail. There's the great texture here. The belt buckle, also you can see that there. Really well done. And then look at the folds in the pants. I mean, this is not just, oh hey, imagine these are pants and not, tights like a superhero wears. There is a great deal of sculpt in there, as you can see the folds and the creases. And since this is a combo figure, look at that freaking great looking holster for his giant gun, which is also awesome. Functional holster. I can put the gun in there. This is the right hand of Doom, which is a great name, and this is just a giant stone fist that Hellboy uses to beat up monsters, which is a great concept. And then you can see the carvings and the detail in there. It looks like stone, feels kind of like stone even. Then we are looking at a figure with great paint apps, great sculpt, and then great detailing. right? And then this guy's got great articulation. He's got a ball-jointed head, all right, or the neck is a ball joint. He's got a range of motion here in his elbows that Batman figure, I'm sorry, his shoulders that the Batman figure did not have. He's got extra articulation here down in the leg region that, again, you would not have seen on that first figure because it's a different company and a different audience, but really able to do some things that the Batman figure couldn't. So when we're looking at a character like Hellboy, who is not a well-known household name, I don't think, to have a figure like this is rare, and came out when the movie was released, the first movie. Hard to find this guy, and he's not cheap. He's on eBay, but you're going to pay a pretty penny. So, oh, I forgot about the cool gun. Check that gun out. I mean, you can see the chamber there. It's got this weathered look to it that looks like it was a real gun. That's called the Samaritan, his gun there. So this is a figure that combines elements of the first two figures. Now, what did this cost me? Where would I have gotten this? This I got at like a Sam Goodies when that was still in the mall. Now it's FYE. Maybe a comic shop would have had this. Toys R Us probably didn't have this at the time the movie came out. Online would have been another place. This figure, if you bought it in a store, you were looking at, I think back then, we're looking about 5 or 6 years ago, you'd have been looking at something like, I want to say $9, maybe $10. This figure on the aftermarket, secondary market prices, you're looking at, 60, 70, depending. I don't know the current demand, but when a movie comes out or there's, something happens of that new media connection, then the prices can go up, which right now Batman figures are going up because of the movie. Avengers, all the Marvel figures that were out there. That for some reason Hasbro didn't make a Black Widow figure, so all the old Black Widow figures that that are in the same scale, in other words, the same size as figures from the Avengers that they did make, those are like $100 on eBay, right? It's insane. They were like $20 before the movie, now $100. So this is just to give you an idea. So why do I collect these? What's the appeal? First of all, I collect characters I really like, that I really, have read the comic books or seen the movies, really dig the characters. And I collect them and appreciate them from the perspectives that I just mentioned. The sculpt, the detail of sculpt that was done, this is a work of art. This is like a statue that's been given articulation so that it can be moved around. Imagine, I'm not making this comparison seriously, but imagine a sculpture, a statue that you really, really love. For me, the greatest work of art by man on his own, right, human being made, is Michelangelo's Pieta. That, to me, doesn't get any more beautiful than that. Imagine if that was articulated, okay? You could change the pose. Now, I don't know why you'd want to, but that's kind of what we're saying here. Great attention to detail and the sculpt that went into this, but not only that, I can change and move the figure. I can pose it. Now, certainly if you're a kid and you're playing with this, well, then that leads to all sorts of fun and imagination, which is why I loved action figures as a kid, because it more than a video game, you got to use your imagination and make up stories and things of that nature. But this allows you to put, and that's what I do. I pose them. I actually spend time. It's going to sound weird, but I go and look at my shelves and appreciate these elements. The sculpture, the paint applications, and then with the articulation, they might have different poses in there. And so when I show you my collection video, look at that great side shot. He's about to give a monster a big old wallop with that fist. It's awesome. Or maybe blow him away with the gun, the Samaritan. So I'll go and just appreciate those elements, the craftsmanship that goes into making these figures, the sculpture and the paint applications. So that's what it is, basically. A little 101 for you in the first ever Big Show Geek Peek. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, as always, please let me know via Facebook. Big Show with Chris Meaux can be found there, the community page. YouTube, the channel is The Big Show, Chris Meaux, no with in there. And of course, you can email me if you still use email, The Big Show with Chris Meaux at, all one word, at gmail.com. Thanks for watching. Have a great one.